Yuri Gagarin and the Turning Point of Exploration by Mary Benshoff and Colin Wright. Yuri Gagarin, a pioneer into the cosmos. Without his historic time-changing voyage around the Earth, further discovery into the great beyond would be void and placid. He created this burst of discovery, and he defined the turning point in exploration.
To be the first to enter the cosmos, to engage, single-handed, in an unprecedented duel with nature, could one dream for anything more?
Gagarin said prior to the Moscow flight. Our deepest fantasies lie in the outer reaches of space. It's the greatest expansion of imagination. The human race is a single blip on the cosmic radar. We knew nothing about it, but thanks to developing technology, we have a broader understanding of the mechanics of the universe. In September of 2003, the Hubble Space Telescope pointed its camera at a minuscule area in the night sky. It appeared as complete blackness to the naked eye. During the 4 months of collecting special images, Hubble captured this. Each dot in the image is an entire galaxy, each containing up to 1 trillion stars. These are the most distant objects ever photographed, up to 13 billion light-years away. The galaxy pictured here contains 8 times as many stars as the Milky Way. It's so massive, it technically shouldn't exist according to current physics theories. All this from what appeared to be nothing. Space technology has also been used to create undersea vessels capable of delving deep into the trenches that divide the crust of our own Earth. During the 1950s and 60s, this technology wasn't possible. 1961 was the height of the Cold War for the Soviet Union. Joseph Stalin's tyrannical rule of his own country had forbade the U.S. from seeing the USSR as an actual international community. After World War II, the U.S. had a very interventionist approach to national relations. The USSR's arms buildup and America's current bellicose rhetoric made the Cold War inevitable. Russia's goal was to obtain details for the atomic bomb, and in 1941 the Soviets were the second nation after the U.S. to detonate a nuclear device. Many other unrelated achievements were made during the Cold War, and at the time people thought whoever could develop smarter technology would outdo the other and become the winner. Once Russia had dispatched Gagarin, there wasn't much else their technology could accomplish. Both nations were expending billions of dollars to do their research. 4 months after the USSR sent their first man, they sent another man into orbit, Gurman Titov. His flight had precisely analogous propaganda purpose. The competition between the USSR and America had created a scientific revolution, turning space fiction into fact. Before Yuri went into orbit, there were other various animals that went up in satellites. Sputnik was one of those satellites. It was an 80-centimeter long structure that weighed 83 kilograms, that went up into the atmosphere 3 years before Gagarin. It stayed on its path in orbit for 3 months, orbiting a total of 1,440 times. Sputnik 2 carried a dog named Laika, which means barker in Russian. Laika lived through the launch but died in space due to overheating and stress since no plan to return to Earth had been created for her. Laika was just one of the many animals the Soviets tested in space. There were fruit flies, various rodents and monkeys, frogs, moss piglets, and of course dogs. Although this created major leeway in exploration, the majority of this experimentation was for propaganda purposes. The United States and Russia had just won the Second World War as allies, and both superpowers stole away with scientists from Germany. They took data for V-2 rockets and other figures, and sent out spies to descry information from the other. During this period, their main goal was to defeat the other's government system. Americans were adamant to defeat communism, and Russia wanted to stop democracy. This point in time attracted a lot of attention. The constant feud over the evils of communism and justness of democracy made national relations tense. On the morning of April 12, 1961, Soviet cosmonaut Yuri Gagarin prepared for his orbit around the globe on the Vostok 3KA-3, or Vostok 1. His call sign for the flight was Cedar, while ground control was referred to as Dawn. Before launching that morning, Gagarin recorded this message.
All my life seems to me like one wonderful moment. Everything experienced and done earlier was done for the sake of this minute. I am aware of the greater difficulty of the tasks than that which I have fulfilled. This is a responsibility not before one, not before tens of people, not before a collective. It's a responsibility before all Soviet people, before all humanity, before its present and future. The minutes are counting down to the launching now. I say to you, dear friends, until we meet again.
And on that note, Gagarin climbed in the top of the 2 compartments of the Vostok. The flight began at 6:07 Universal Time. His heavy machinery was boosted into orbit by V-2 Vostok K series rocket. The 27-year-old cosmonaut was leaving the ground in Bakanor, Russia, and heading for the stars. Yuri Alexeyevich Gagarin was born in the village of Klishino on March 9, 1934. Yuri's studies were interrupted by the 1941 Nazi invasion of Russia. This point in time was disturbing. many people were scared, and World War II affected everyone on Earth. It caused a major military boom, which created the need for young soldiers. Gagarin might never have joined the military without these current events. He became an apprentice founderman at 15 in a machinery plant outside of Moscow, and later in 1951 transferred to the Saratov Industrial Technical School in Volga, which is a junior college. His marks were incredible, and he graduated with honors as a founderman technician in 1955. That same year, he joined the Saratov Flying Club and learned how to fly planes, parachute, and other necessary flight skills. In 1957, he graduated with top honors and married a medical graduate, and spent the summer learning to fly the Yak-18 before enrolling as a cadet at the Orenburg Pilot Training School. He graduated from there 2 years later, and immediately joined the Soviet Air Force as a fighter pilot. Gagarin was highly triumphant in the Air Force. His compact body made it possible for him to fit into tighter cockpits. He was a mere 5'2", and this didn't abhor him in the slightest. By 1957, he was promoted to lieutenant, and late in 1959, he applied to the Soviet Cosmonaut Training Program. He was inducted on his 26th birthday, and continued to excel. Americans and Soviets alike were impressed by the prestigious image of Gagarin. James McGregor Burns, a Williams College science professor, stated,
He is not only the handsomest, that best dressed, the most articulate, and graceful as a gazelle. He is omniscient. He swallows and digests whole books in minutes. He confounds experts with his superior knowledge of their field. He is omnipotent.
This is why, out of about 24 other men, Gagarin was chosen. Despite his short stature, he reached incredible heights. Boykali! Shouted Gagarin as the Vostok's fuel chamber began to burn upon early takeoff on April 12, 1961. It means, let's go in Russian, and that's when the flight initiated. Yuri spent 108 minutes in the spacecraft, 89 of which were in orbit. He kept constant contact with ground control. Radio transmissions consisted of memos such as,
I am feeling fine.
And,
I see Earth. It is so beautiful.
He described the horizon and atmosphere as he saw them.
I saw for the first time the Earth's shape. I could easily see the shores of continents, islands, great rivers, folds of the terrain, large bodies of water. The feelings which filled me I can express with one word: joy. What beauty! I saw clouds and their light shadows on the distant dear Earth. The water looked like darkish, slightly gleaming spots. When I watched the horizon, I saw the abrupt contrasting transition from the Earth's light-colored surface to the absolutely black sky. I enjoyed the rich color spectrum of the Earth. It is surrounded by a light blue areole that gradually darkens, becoming turquoise, dark blue, violet, and finally coal black.
The Vostok whirled about the Earth at 18,000 miles an hour. Vostok's flight and re-entry was controlled by a computer, and this proved controversial for Americans at the time. The FAI, which was established to maintain all aviation records, actually revised their definition of spaceflight. Because Gagarin was not controlling the aircraft, it didn't seem realistic to count it as a successful aerial mission. This was over speculation on Gagarin's landing. People were uncertain whether he took the bumpy road down while still inside the Vostok or parachuted out of it. It is confirmed he ejected from the spacecraft and landed in a field near the border of Kazakhstan and Soviet Russia. When stepping across the ground, people were first afraid.
When they saw me in my spacesuit and the parachute dragging alongside as I walked, they started to back away in fear. I told them, don't be afraid. I'm a Soviet like you, who has descended from space, and I must find a telephone to call Moscow.
This is a turning point because after this event occurred, mankind had burst forth and succeeded at one of the greatest achievements in history. We now have a much greater understanding of not only our Earth, but planets and galaxies billions of light years away. Talarians have dreamed about flying among the stars since we were cognitive. Gagarin's flight around the planet had a massive effect on history. Once Gagarin was fired into orbit, the USA dropped most of their purely scientific research to create a vessel capable of reaching the moon. On July 20th, 1969, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin soared above the atmosphere on Apollo 11 and walked on the lunar surface. This won the Cold War and the race to moon for America. The reality of this dream gave people around the Earth hope that exploration in the final frontier would reach all new heights. What we've learned today is imperative to understanding not just our own existence, but other life forms may exist on other planets. While analyzing gases and particles in the far reaches of space, scientists were able to gauge cosmic epochs since the beginning of time. The world has pride in these accomplishments. They don't belong to any country in particular. It was only one small step for man, and a giant leap for mankind. This turning point would allow for future generations to not only know what it took to get to space, but who ventured there to begin with. For centuries to come, mankind will know the heroes in space.